You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello, all. Welcome to the Armchair Cricket Podcast, a cricket podcast focusing on Test cricket by armchair critics of the game. In today's special episode, we will be focusing on the ongoing Women's T20 World Cup in Australia. And to discuss this with us, we have a really special guest joining us. In this segment, we have a special guest from the female cricket website, Mr. Vishal Yadav, joining us. Hello, Vishal. Welcome to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.
Hello, Ajit.
So, would you like to tell us a little bit about your website and what gave you an inspiration to, cover women's cricket?
Absolutely. So I started this platform, this website in Feb 2016, exactly 4 years ago, with the whole idea, with the whole objective of promoting women's cricket around the world. Luckily, the domain was available, femalecricket.com. So I quickly bought it, and that's how the journey began. Prior to that, I've always been a cricket fanatic. I've grown up in India, just like every second, third Indian boy. Again, my dream was also to get into cricket to play for the country. Unfortunately, I was good with studies, so my parents told me to pursue your education first and then probably get into sports. And also, being a boy, women's cricket, it did not come very naturally to me. I When I started in 2016, I did not know the names of all the cricketers. Forget about Australian, England cricketers. I did not even know who are the players in the Indian circuit in the Indian cricket team. So it has been a long journey. The last 4 years has taught me a lot of things with this initiative, and I have never looked back. The day I started learning and reading about women's cricket, it has always uh, got me more interested into this particular sector, and that's how things have been so far.
That seems like a very nice, niche thing to start off with. So that was why I was very curious. But when you look at the competitiveness that we currently witness in the women's T20 tournament, I think this tournament has been more interesting than I dare say many a men's T20 tournament, right? T20 World Cup tournament for me at least. So
Absolutely, absolutely.
let's get into it. So let's start off with the group stages, Vishal. So would you recollect any, really good matches in the ongoing World Cup that you would like to talk about in the group stages for yourself? Maybe we can, look at the team-wise, matches. So I would say, I don't know, if you were to look at India's matches, they have won all 4 out of 4, which in the end turned out to be really, really crucial
Correct.
for them, right?
Absolutely.
Let's start talking about the very first match, the India-Australia match. How crucial is this match for India, and so far, does it have any bearing on the upcoming match, do you think?
So again, the whole buzz around this tournament, justice was done when India played against Australia in Australia and defeated them by 17 runs. Nobody,
Right.
could have asked for a better, start for this T20 World Cup. All credits to Australia, the media, for creating that hype, for creating that buzz around this event. Near about 15,000, 17,000 people turned up at the stadium, at the Sydney Showground Stadium in Sydney on the 21st of Feb. And that's how it all started really well. And going forward, as we witnessed, there were a couple of more crucial games which happened. It wasn't just the top, let's say, 2 to 3 teams, namely India, England, or Australia performing in the group stages, but we also saw the emerge of Pakistan coming into the fore and performing really well. We also saw some crucial games with the teams like Sri Lanka and South Africa, and overall it was a great group stage. I have never seen a group stage as competitive as the 2020 edition. So overall it was a great start to this tournament. To answer your question, India Australia, it did give that jump.
India are sort of dark horses as far as I'm concerned in the Women's T20 World Cup.
Yeah.
Uh,
But before we get to that, the traditional favorites, Australia and England, both of them lost their very first game, right?
Absolutely.
But then they were able to bounce back really well. England had a tougher route, so to say,
Yeah, yeah,
but Australia had a deciding quarterfinal, right?
correct.
So England had to beat West Indies, Pakistan. They were very competitive matches in that sense. So, but
Absolutely.
for you, if you were to go through, let's say let's start off with the England team.
Mhm.
Who has been, let's say, the standout performer for the English girls in this tournament?
Well, from England, there's no doubt Nat Skewer has time and again stood up for England. She's currently the leading run scorer from the English side. But again, it would be unfair to give credits only to Nat Skewer because the bowlers also did a fantastic job to give them the crucial wins when they needed it. Credits to Sophie Eccleston, who also became the youngest to take 50 wickets, and also Catherine Brunt, and then you also have bowlers and fielders who did a fabulous job for English side. So bouncing back from that first defeat against South Africa, that's what the champions are known for. They won't give you that easy, and that's what England shown. And it was not fair from their side that the final match, the decider match was washed out yesterday. Had it been a reserve day, had there been a reserve day, probably we would have seen one of the best games of the tournament. India England. Uh, England again were the favorites because of the past history. They have never lost any game against India, especially when it comes to the knockout stages. But again, the rain gods had some other plans, and India were through for the finals.
When you look at the tournament's top three run scorers as well as wicket takers, you see two English batters in the top three
Uh,
and one English bowler in the top three. That very well tells us, the story of how competitive England's women have been and how unlucky they were to really miss out.
True.
There is also a wrist spinner, right? Glenn from the English team.
Sarah Glenn.
When we talk about wrist spinners, right?
Yeah.
So, what do you think the impact of the wrist spinners has been in the tournament? Poonam Yadav from India, you have Glenn. Also, I think there was a wrist spinner from Pakistan, if I'm not wrong. So,
Correct.
this has been something different for this World Cup.
Absolutely. So initially, when the tournament, before the start of the tournament, we all expected that there would be a lot of bounce, and the Australian wickets, the Australian pitches would favor fast and medium-paced bowlers. But Poonam Yadav in the very first game, proved everybody wrong with those leg spins and taking 4 wickets in that crucial game and giving India that win against Australia. And she proved that the spin also can do a lot of damage on the Australian wicket. And now, if you see the top bowlers, the top wicket takers from the tournament so far, Poonam Yadav is at number one with 9 wickets. At second, we have Megan Shoot, and we also have Jess Jonathan again, who are leg spinners. There's Shashikala Siriwardene, again a leg spinner, and Sarah Glenn, Amelia Keith. So if I look at the top 10 bowlers with the most wickets from the tournament, you will see 7 of them, with again exceptions like Megan and Shikha Pandey and Anya Shaksol, the pacers, the fast bowlers in the side. But then it's the ratio is 7:3. So leg spinners have definitely done an excellent job in this whole tournament. And again, it becomes very difficult in the one of the press conferences. The captains also spoke. Harmanpreet Kaur, she mentioned that it is very difficult to play those flight deliveries from Poonam Yadav because again the batters have to strike the ball really hard if you want them to go beyond the boundary line. I think the captains are definitely keeping an eye on how to use their leg spinners well and how to use their spinners well.
So, when we look at the other, strongly performing teams, so we can first maybe look at South Africa. I'm saving India and Australia for the last because they're going to play the final. But when we look at South Africa, do you think the result yesterday was, justified their performance throughout the tournament in the semi-final? I mean, the semi-final where they lost very narrowly to Australia.
So again, I would say that in semi-finals and finals, it's the games in semi-finals and finals cannot decide the fate of the entire team. South Africa were exceptional throughout the tournament. They were unbeaten, and they still are. And from my perspective, yesterday's game again, it was not a 20-over game. It was reduced to 13 overs. Had there been 20 overs, probably South Africa would have uh, made sure that the batters, the top orders, they get enough time to settle down, and then they are very well known for slog hittings in the end. So you never know. Probably Mengen du Preez or Claude Ryan, had they been given enough time and 20 overs, they could have turned the game in their favor. And also, there was not much to chase. 133, 134. Uh, I think the South African batters could have won that from there, had there been rain or the rain gods on their side. But it was very unfortunate for the match to be curtailed to 13 overs, and then they given 98 to score, which was again over six and a half runs per over. So in semi-finals and finals, you cannot really predict uh, uh, about a team's future, about a team's overall performance during the tournament.
Well, I mean, Australia came through. It would have been not a nice thing if Australia had lost in the semifinals and the home team would not have been in the final, but they were able to clinch that. How about the other team that did really well, in my opinion, New Zealand? Do you think they were a bit unlucky in that, the let's say the potential quarterfinal shootout against Australia? So Australia have come through two such scrapes, both in their potential quarterfinal as well as on the semi-final day. They had to fight really hard to get into the final, right? So, how about New Zealand? What do you think of their performances?
Again, so New Zealand started off really well against Sri Lanka, and then they lost the game against India by 3 runs. Again, it was a very close encounter. Amelia Kerr, I'm not sure if you had seen the match, but if you get a chance to watch the highlight, it was one of the best matches of the group stages. Amelia Kerr, 19-year-old, she was standing there alone, and people on the non-strikers end were coming and going, but then she stood there and made sure that the New Zealand side came very close to the win, and the Indian team again won just by 3 runs. Again, in the next game, New Zealand won by 17 runs against Bangladesh. But when it came to the Australia and New Zealand, that's when the Australian had the last laugh. They defeated New Zealand by 4 runs. Overall, as a team, I would say New Zealand is a very strong side. The bowlers have done really well, the spinners especially. And again, there are few hiccups when it comes to the batting order, which I'm sure they would be uh, going back home and thinking about it. There's 2021 World Cup, which is in New Zealand next year. There's not much time left for that, and it's hardly 9 to 10 months left for this particular tournament, the 2021 Women's World Cup. So I'm sure the team will be going back and working more on their batting order, the top order especially. And with Amy, the former captain, out of the tournament, once she's back, she would also bring that stability to the team. But without her also, the team was really well, and made sure that they win those crucial games at the crucial juncture.
Probably the match of the tournament so far has been that match you highlighted. Amelia Kerr really striking out at the end and nearly bringing New Zealand home versus India. But following that, the other match where they were able to defend 91 against Bangladesh, who had a chance to, let me put it like this, really make history as
Correct,
far as Bangladeshi
correct.
women's cricket goes. Right? They could have won that game, and if they had shown a little bit of presence of mind, they panicked towards the end. So those two were like really, really interesting games. The other really interesting game was for me when Pakistan started off on a winning note.
Yeah.
Right? How do you rate Pakistan's progress during the tournament?
Again, if I compare it with the previous tournaments, the previous editions of World Cup or any ICC tournament, this team, this bunch of Pakistan cricketers showed that they were there to win. Showed that extra courage which is needed at crucial times. Their batters stepped up in the first game, which they won against West Indies, the champions of 2016 World Cup. It was purely because their bowlers did well. The fielders, did a decent job. I would say they were not excellent, but they did a decent job, and the batters basically took their team home. So that's what we have seen time and again, that the top orders in the Pakistani side not performing as per the expectations, and then basically the middle orders taking up all the pressures. But this time the batters at the top orders were brilliant. Let's not forget the contributions of Zaveria Khan. She was exceptional with her batting. The shots which she played, it was with so much of confidence, and the commentators and former ex-cricketers of Pakistan were all in praise of Bisma's, the confidence that she brought to this entire team in this World Cup. The bowlers also did a very pretty job with Diana Begg leading the four. But yes, overall, the Pakistan side looked much improved at this time, and I'm looking forward to this whole team. There's so much being done at the domestic level in Pakistan to ensure that the female cricketers, the women cricketers are playing good cricket. Most of the cricketers are contracted now, so that also has given them a lot of time to practice and take care of their cricket. Hopefully, in next 2 to 3 years, we will see a much improved side, or a side which can give good competition to teams like Australia and England. They have just started building on the domestic structure, and that is the reason why we also saw some very young players coming. Syed Aruba Shah was one talent which came from the domestic structure. She was only 16 and brought into the attack at such an early age. So going forward, I see a very good future for Pakistan cricket.
All right. How about the West Indians? I felt they were a bit disappointing.
Oh yes, yes. So again, West Indies, the kind of cricket they have played, we would not complain, or what I would say, to put it in other words, the expectations are always high when it comes to West Indies. The 2016 Women's T20 World Cup, they won it against Australia, the defending champions. But this time they disappointed not just the fans but the entire tournament. A couple of players were just in the team out of their injury. Uh, for example, Deandra Trotting, there was so much expectations from her, but then she could not perform well in the tournament. Apart from Stephanie Taylor and Anisa Mohammed, the leading cricketers from the West Indies side, nobody actually looked in touch. And cricket is a team game. You cannot just rely on 2 to 3 players. All the teams, all the matches which you see went really close, or the teams winning it again, were the matches where the entire team came forward and performed really well. So you cannot just depend on 2 to 3 players and expect the entire West Indies team to win the game. So it was a bit disappointing from the Caribbean side, but I'm very sure that once the team recovers, once everybody is back in the side and doing well, they could beat Australia on their given day. So it's just a matter of time and giving them uh, enough exposure.
Speaking of, over reliance on one player, what are your thoughts on Sri Lanka and Bangladesh?
Let me first start with Bangladesh. Bangladesh, they started off really well, giving a tough fight to the Indian side. Again, so they were a decent team when it came to giving competition to the bigger teams like India, Australia, or New Zealand. They did really well with their all-round cricket development, be it batting, bowling, and fielding. Uh, the bowling basically stood out for me. The batting still needs a lot of improvement, but overall, as a team, they looked a good bunch. Overall, as a team, they performed really well. And again, so there are a couple of areas which they still need improvement on. Probably they should be looking to strengthen their top orders, and the middle orders is currently looking stable, but then the top order needs some attention, and then you also need a few wicket takers. You cannot just rely on Jahan or Alam to take wickets. You've got to have more 2 to 3 wicket takers in a side when you're competing in a world tournament like this.
So then, Sri Lanka, over reliance on Chamari Atapattu, I would say.
Sri Lanka, the only name which comes to my mind or to anybody who has followed this cricket, who has followed Women's T20 World Cup, Sri Lanka was all about Chamari Athapattu and her excellence. We did see, the senior, one another senior in form of Shashikala Shrivardhane, who stood for the team in the final game, took 4 wickets against Bangladesh, and that was their only victory in the side. But yes, so we need more people. We need at least 2 to 3 more players like Chamari Athapattu in Sri Lankan side if they want to win good battles. They are at the young side, I would say. Apart from 2 to 3 seniors in the squad, more or less, the entire squad is pretty young. 23, 24 is the average. But yes, you cannot rely on just one player, like I said it for Bangladesh. You cannot just rely on Shashikala or Chamari Atapatu to close the games for you.
So now we come to the the new entrants, the babies of the World Cup, Thailand. Did they win everybody's hearts? Do you think?
Definitely. Not the matches, but yes. Be it with their batting performance, be it with their bowling, be it with the fielding, or be it with their dance moves in the final games. Thailand, this team was everywhere. I was very surprised, especially in the last match when they scored 150 odd runs against Pakistan. But again, it was do or die match. It was, both the teams wanted, especially Thailand wanted to make go back home with one win in their stride, but unfortunately, because of rains, we could not get the complete result. But again, was very impressed with this whole bunch with the Thailand women's cricket team.
Indeed. Now, before we look at the final prospect, what is with the tournament planning that they have really not planned for a reserve day for the, the semifinals, and both semifinals being played on the same day? Well, that's understandable, but at least one reserve day is not kept, and you're playing in MCJ, and you have to go from Sydney to Melbourne. That's a big travel, right? In Australia, that's very surprising, right? If you look at the men's tournament, New Zealand would not even have made the final if this was the case. If there was no
Correct.
reserve day. And you can always argue it's a 50-over game and all
Yeah.
that, but how
Yeah.
short-sighted is this from the organizers?
So again, there's a lot of debate around this since day before yesterday. Probably from Wednesday onwards, there was this whole question and debate going around. Should there be a reserve day, and why did the ICC, the organizers, did not think of a reserve day when they knew that it is going to be raining on throughout Thursday, which is the semi-finals day. My personal opinion is that there should have been a reserve day. It was again the game's loss. The cricket was a loser at the end because you would never want a side like England or India going into the semi-finals like this, and then the rain being a factor, rain deciding your fate for this entire tournament, because the teams they practice for months, for years, they put in their hard work and their efforts just for this particular moment. And when you are thrown into that moment, then rain interrupts and there's no proper planning for that. I was very disappointed with the way things panned out. Again, I'm a cricket fan at heart, and that is the reason why it pinched me more, because I definitely wanted to watch this game. India England, it's big stage, it's a semi-final game, it's a World Cup tournament, and probably ICC will now look forward, and in the coming tournaments we might see a reserve day for the semi-final games, because there's a lot of bash going around, there's a lot of criticism going around, and ICC will definitely take a note of it.
All right. So now let's look at the two finalists. So India and Australia, right? So Australia, the traditional favorites, also the, let's say, historically the most strongly performing team.
Correct.
But India, who as I call them, the dark horses, simply because they could have gone anywhere or nowhere. But in this case, they have done really well. They've done really well to win all their league games, so which was very important that they could come to the final. But I see a few questions as far as the Indian team is concerned, because they have Shafali Verma, who's like really, really firing, and now has reached the number one ranking in the T20I batting rankings for women, right? But she has a
Correct.
equivalent in Alisa Healy
Yeah,
on the other side. So for me, what really makes a difference is
true.
the middle order. right? The Indian middle order is completely misfiring, but Australian middle order is
Mm-hmm.
really good. They're number 3 down to number 6. Everybody is, either contributing in some form or the other in one of the matches, but the Indian batswomen seems to be, missing there. So, what are your thoughts? Who do you think stacks up favorably going into the final?
Again, it's a very good question, but we all know the answers. The batter, the openers from Indian side, Shefali Verma, Smriti Mandhana, and then Jemima Rodrigues and Dipti Sharma. Basically, they batted so well that the middle orders did not get a chance to, settle at the stadium in the center and probably show what they are capable of. Harmanpreet did get few chances, but she did not capitalize on those chances. In the last game against Sri Lanka, we did see some spark from a batting, but again, it was a debate going around. Going forward for the final game, no, I definitely see Harmanpreet Kaur in case if she gets too bad, in case of the middle orders, the openers that didn't bat well. I see her taking the charge, and because she has uh, been the senior most player in the side, she has played a lot of games. She has been through that situation before. We all know about the 171 knock against Australia. It was the decider game in the 2017 World Cup. She stood for the team and single-handedly took the team, across the line. So she has the capability. It's just a matter of a day or two when she is given the opportunity, the responsibility. She takes the charge and makes the team win. So we all are hoping for her to stand up and take that one extra step forward and take India far the line.
Right. And when it comes to bowling, right, a bunch of really interesting spinners on both sides. Good fast bowling to begin with, right? You have Megan Schutt versus Shikha Pandey, and
Correct.
it's still a very interesting battle. I find it tough to choose between the bowling sides, but
Correct.
which bowling team do you think holds a bit more of an edge? Even though there is no Elisa Perry, so we'll get to that in a point. But as it stands, Australia or India, do you think in bowling?
Again, in bowling, I would give some brownie points to India because they have won most of their matches courtesy their bowling performance at crucial junctures when India scored 130ish, 120ish. It was their bowling which gave them the desired win. So the bowlers, even if India gets 130 or 140 on board, Harmanpreet and company, are pretty confident about their bowlers that now they can easily win the tournament. So 120, 130 is also something which Harmanpreet would definitely see it as a competitive total. And the reason she sees it because bowlers have time and again proved that they have that capacity to win matches if they have 120, 120, 30 on board. As far as bowling is concerned, my uh, the strong the strongest component I would say is India.
Interesting. So now we come to the question of Elisa Perry and how big her impact or her loss would impact the Australian team. What do you think about that?
I see. Ellie Perry has played almost all the matches for Australia in the T20 World Cup. So there was a stat which we had put on female cricket's Twitter handle, which is that 36 matches has Ellie Perry played for Australia, and that is all the numbers. That is the total number of matches which Australia has played in the World Cup so far. Yesterday was the only game when she missed it out due to the injury, and because she's out of the tournament now. As far as the impact which she will have is massive because she is an all-rounder. She basically contributes with both bat and the ball, and also she is an excellent fielder. So she not being in the side is definitely a loss for the Australian side. But then Australia is such a team that they don't rely on one person. They don't rely on one player. Either their bowlers will come forward, or their batters, or the middle orders, or their fielders will ensure that their team gets past the line. So, from the Australian perspective, I'm sure they would be not too tensed about this whole sequence of events which happened with Ellie Perry. But also, there's Delisa Cummins who replaced her in the tournament, and she's also a big striker. of the ball, and also she was very handy with the bowling yesterday. So they do have replacements in place, but from the Indian perspective, from an Indian fan, I would say it's a good sign for India that they don't have Ellie Berry in their side, who can turn the match single-handedly at her will. From an Australian perspective, it's not too disappointing. It's not a matter of worry, I would say.
All right, all right. So, you know, as a finals prediction, who do you think is going to lift the tournament?
That's again a question I won't be able to answer because the way things have panned out, um, Australia have come from that defeat, and then yesterday they were lucky, I would say, because the rain gods made sure that they played that 20 overs, and uh, then there was only 13 overs left for the South Africans to play. Also, the India England was washed out. Who would have expected that the semi final number two would ever happen? Uh, but it happened, and there was, again, I would say, there was the Australian gods for sure. They want Australia team to win this. My favorites again would be Australia, given the past, the history which they have from just a second from 19 matches in the T20 that they have played so far. Australia have won 13 of them and lost only 6 of them. Also in the World Cups, if you see, they have been at that position in the World Cup finals for around 6 times. So they are definitely going to be the strong contenders, and of course the Australian favorites.
Right. So, I agree with you there that I can tell you that for me as an Indian cricket fan, my heart says India, but looking at all the stats that you put together and also looking at the tournament form,
Yeah,
I would still put Australia ahead. So my head says Australia, so to say. So all the best to both the women's teams going into the final, and may the best team win. Right.
absolutely.
All right. So, all in all, it's been a wonderful tournament and a wonderful exhibition of cricket that we got to see in Australia, and it's been a wonderful advertisement for women's cricket in general. So, I would say this tournament can be a way in which, at least for many of us who are not very familiar with the women's cricket game,
Correct.
this tournament has been a real eye opener for us, and this would probably mean there are sometimes many men's international matches played which are without context or which really don't have too much meaning.
Correct.
So in such a case, if you see, maybe it's exactly the same day if a women's cricket match is actually happening. We really expect and we really hope the same cricket fan identifies the quality of cricket being higher in the women's match and switch over to the women's game. So I really
Absolutely.
hope this tournament has paved a way for this sort of a change in the mindset of the average cricket fan, so to say.
Correct. Correct. We all are hoping for a good India Australia game, and it can't get any. The finals can't get any better than this, right? The whole objective of MCG getting packed, fill the MCG campaign by Cricket Australia. I think now it is possible with India and Australia uh, competing at this level. Earlier, had there been South Africa or England, there would have been a bit of questions here and there, whether the MCG would get packed, whether it would be a house full at MCG. But with India and Australia competing at that level, I see that happening. 90,000 plus people turning up at a stadium watching this game live. And all credits for sure to Cricket Australia, their team, the media, for making sure that this event gets the limelight it deserves.
All right, indeed. So, thanks a lot for your guest appearance on our show. And it's been wonderful having somebody who has a very unique perspective on the women's cricket. And we hope to have you again and again on our show, guest appearing, and giving us a nice perspective as well as giving us updates from the women's world of cricket. Would you like to maybe give us a bit more detail about your website and how people can find you on the social media platforms as well?
Sure, Ajit. Firstly, thank you to you and the Armchair Cricket for inviting me. This again, female cricket, like I said, it's been there since last 4 years. Uh, We are available on Facebook, on Twitter, on Instagram, on YouTube. You just have to go and search for female cricket. We also have a website which is femalecricket.com, which primarily hosts all the content that we do. We do interviews, we do feature articles, we do summaries, we do match analysis and previews, and we are doing a lot of content for this entire T20 World Cup. There are a lot of statistical analysis which we also do, which goes on our Twitter handle. The Twitter handle is I am female cricket, or you can just go and type female cricket and you will see our logo over there. And or the best way is to go to see our website, which is femalecricket.com, and that is where you will find all the links to our official pages or official social media accounts.
All right. Thanks a lot, Vishal. Thanks a lot for joining us, and we hope to have you soon once again.
Pleasure. Ank.
Now, moving on, if you were to go to the trivia section quickly, let's look at the trivia question from the previous episode. The question was, who is the only West Indian wicketkeeper to have scored 100 and had 4 dismissals in an ODI? So, a listener, DS Pati has got the answer right. So, the answer is Shai Hope. This was against Sri Lanka in the first ODI in the ongoing tour of Sri Lanka from the West Indies. So, the trivia question for this episode is, can you name a pair of brothers-in-law currently playing men's international cricket? So we know previously plenty of brothers-in-law have played international cricket. We know Gundappa Vishwanath was the brother-in-law of Sunil Gavaskar. Similarly, we had Craig White, who was a brother-in-law of Dan Lehman. And even though these two played for different countries, they were brothers-in-law. So like this, can you name currently a brothers-in-law pair that's playing international cricket? You could write in with your answers to armchair.cricket@gmail.com, or you could tweet your answer to us at armchaircricketpod, or you could leave it as a comment in any of the podcasting platforms or podcasting applications you use to listen to our episode. So I do hope you enjoyed listening to this episode, and you will tune in as we have plenty of cricket going on and plenty of things to discuss. Thanks a lot for listening. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
You're listening to the Armchair Cricket Podcast.